The dust of the Wyoming Territory hung thick in the air as Zara Avery's world collapsed around her. The year was 1875, and the promise of a new life had just shattered with the sting of a palm across her cheek. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth as she sprawled in the dirt outside the Sweetwater Saloon, her trunks and belongings scattered around her like the broken pieces of her dreams. "Worthless city girl," Marshal Townsend bellowed, his whiskey-soaked breath hanging in the cool evening air. "I paid good money to bring you out here as my bride, and you can't even cook a decent meal." He loomed over her, fist raised for another blow. Zara's body trembled, her light blue traveling dress now stained with dust and blood. At 22, she had left everything behind in Boston after her parents' death, answering an advertisement for a mail-order bride. The letters had been so kind, so promising. The reality had been 3 days of hell. "You ain't worth the paper your contract's written on," Marshall spat, kicking at her carpetbag. "Find your own way back east or die trying. Makes no difference to me." Around them, the citizens of Promise Creek averted their eyes. No one dared challenge Marshal Townsend, the wealthiest rancher in the county. Zara tried to rise, her legs wobbling beneath her skirts as tears blurred her vision. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The sound of approaching hoofbeats barely registered until a shadow fell across her face. A tall figure dismounted in one fluid motion, boots landing with a soft thud in the dust. "That's enough," came a deep voice, calm yet edged with steel. Marshall turned, his face contorting with rage. "This ain't your business, Sterling." Zara lifted her gaze to see a man standing between her and Marshall. Broad-shouldered and lean-hipped, he wore a dusty black hat pulled low over his eyes. His denim trousers and simple cotton shirt spoke of hard work rather than wealth, but the way he carried himself commanded respect. "You making a habit of beating women in the street now, Townsend?" the stranger asked, his voice level but dangerous. Before Marshall could answer, the man turned and knelt beside Zara. With gentle hands, he helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as if she were made of china. His eyes, a startling shade of green flecked with gold, met hers with unexpected kindness. "You're safe now, madam," he said softly so only she could hear. "I promise you that." "Quinn Sterling, you stay out of this," Marshall warned, taking a threatening step forward. "She's my property. I paid for her passage." Quinn's jaw tightened. "People ain't property, Townsend." "Not in this territory, not anywhere." He positioned himself more firmly between Zara and her attacker. "The lady's coming with me." Marshall's hand twitched toward the pistol at his hip. "You willing to die over some eastern trash?" The crowd that had gathered gasped collectively, but Quinn didn't flinch. "Are you willing to hang for killing over her?" His voice remained steady. "Because Sheriff Davis might look the other way on a lot of things, but even he draws the line at murder in broad daylight." A tense silence stretched between them. Zara held her breath, acutely aware of Quinn's protective arm still supporting her. Finally, Marshall spat in the dirt. "Take her then. Damaged goods ain't worth my time." He turned and stormed back into the saloon, the batwing doors swinging wildly behind him. Only then did Quinn turn his full attention to Zara. "Can you stand on your own, madam?" she nodded, though her legs still trembled. "Yes, thank you, Mr. Sterling." "Quinn's fine," he replied, bending to gather her scattered belongings. "We should get you somewhere safe before he changes his mind." "I have nowhere to go," Zara admitted, the reality of her situation crashing down upon her. She was 3,000 miles from home with less than $10 to her name. Quinn paused, considering her words. "I have a small ranch about 5 miles outside of town. My sister lives there too. You'd be safe until you figure out your next move." Zara hesitated. She'd already trusted one stranger in this territory with disastrous results. Reading her thoughts, Quinn added gently, "Or I can take you to Widow Parker's boarding house if you'd prefer. She's strict but fair." I have very little money," Zara confessed, shame coloring her cheeks. Quinn finished gathering her belongings into the carpet bag. "That won't be a problem either way," he straightened, offering a small, reassuring smile. "What's your name?" "Zara. Zara Avery." "Well, Miss Avery, the choice is yours, but we should make it quickly." Zara glanced back at the saloon, where Marshall's angry voice could already be heard raising an argument with someone inside. The thought of staying in town, where he could find her again, sent ice through her veins. "Your ranch," she decided, "if your sister truly doesn't mind." Quinn nodded, loading her trunks onto his wagon with ease. He helped her climb onto the seat before untethering his horse from the hitching post. "Clementine doesn't mind good company," he said, mounting his chestnut gelding. "And she's been saying I need civilizing influence around the place." As the wagon pulled away from Promise Creek, Zara couldn't help looking back at the small frontier town that had promised so much and delivered so little. Beside her, Quinn rode in companionable silence, his presence somehow both reassuring and terrifying. What had she done? Trusting another stranger in this wild land, the journey to Quinn's ranch passed in relative silence. Zara's cheek throbbed where Marshall had struck her, and her thoughts swirled with uncertainty. The Wyoming landscape stretched around them, vast and beautiful in the late afternoon light, rolling hills dotted with sagebrush and the distant silhouette of mountains against the sky. "It's not much farther," Quinn said finally, breaking the silence. "Just over that ridge." Zara nodded, clutching her reticule tightly in her lap. "Your sister won't mind my arrival, unannounced and, in such circumstances." Quinn's expression softened slightly. "Clementine's got a big heart. She came out here after losing her husband in the war, understands hard times better than most." As they crested the hill, a modest homestead came into view. A sturdy log cabin with a stone chimney stood proudly against the backdrop of pine trees. A small barn and corral sat nearby, with a vegetable garden stretching along one side of the house. It wasn't grand like Marshall Townsend's sprawling ranch house had been, but it radiated something Marshall's place had lacked: warmth. A slender woman with honey-colored hair emerged from the cabin, shading her eyes against the setting sun. When she spotted the wagon, she waved enthusiastically. "Quinn Sterling, you're back early. Did you forget something?" Her voice carried across the yard as they approached. When she noticed Zara, her expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Oh, you've brought company." Quinn dismounted, quickly explaining the situation in low tones while Zara remained in the wagon, embarrassment flooding her cheeks. Clementine's eyes widened, then softened with compassion. She immediately approached the wagon. "Miss Avery, please come inside. You look like you could use some hot tea and perhaps a cool cloth for that cheek." Her voice was kind but matter-of-fact, sparing Zara the indignity of excessive pity. "Thank you, Mrs. Just Clementine, please, or Clem, as this brute of a brother calls me," she said with genuine warmth. "And don't you worry about a thing. Marshall Townsend's reputation precedes him, and none of it good. You're not the first woman to discover his letters paint a prettier picture than the man himself." With Clementine's arm supportively around her waist, Zara was ushered into the cabin while Quinn unloaded her belongings. The interior was modest but meticulously kept handmade furniture, braided rugs on the plank floors, and shelves lined with books. A kettle already steamed on the cast iron stove. "Sit here," Clementine directed her to a comfortable chair. "I'll fetch that cloth for your face." When she returned, she gently dabbed at the cut on Zara's lip. "It won't leave a scar," she assured her, "but you'll have some bruising for a few days." "I feel so foolish," Zara whispered, the tears she'd been holding back finally spilling over. "I should have known better than to trust a stranger's letters." Clementine took her hands. "There's no shame in hoping for a better life. The shame lies with the man who abused your trust." She poured a cup of tea and pressed it into Zara's trembling hands. "Drink this. It's willow bark with honey. It'll help with the pain." The door opened as Quinn entered with her trunks. He set them down quietly near the wall, his eyes briefly meeting Zara's before he looked away. "I'll see to the horses," he said, his deep voice unusually gentle. After he left, Clementine settled across from Zara. "My brother doesn't say much, but he's a good man, one of the best I know." "He risked much to help me," Zara acknowledged. "Marshal Townsend seemed dangerous." "He is," Clementine confirmed grimly. "But Quinn's never been one to stand by when someone needs help, no matter the risk." She paused, studying Zara's face. "Do you have family back east? Someone who could help you get home?" Zara shook her head. "My parents died last winter, influenza. I was working as a seamstress, but the wages barely covered room and board." She sipped the bitter tea. "When I saw Mr. Townsend's advertisement for a bride, it seemed providential." Clementine nodded understanding. "Well, you're welcome to stay here while you sort things out. We have a small room off the kitchen. It isn't much, but it's yours for as long as you need it." "I couldn't impose nonsense. Besides," Clementine added with a small smile, "I could use the help. Quinn's a terrible cook, and I've got more mending than I can manage with these two working the ranch." "Two, Quinn and Jose, our ranch hand. He lives in the small cabin behind the barn with his wife, Maria. They're good people." Clementine stood, taking Zara's empty teacup. "Now, let me show you where you'll sleep. You look exhausted, and tomorrow will be soon enough to figure out next steps." The room was indeed small, but clean and cozy, with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a small window overlooking the garden. After Clementine left, Zara changed into her nightgown, her body aching from the day's trauma. As she slipped between the cool sheets, she heard the low murmur of voices from the main room. Quinn had returned inside. "She'll be all right," came Clementine's reassuring voice. "She's stronger than she looks." "Townsend won't let this go easily," Quinn replied, his tone worried. "He considers it a matter of pride now. Then we'll face that when it comes. We've weathered worse." Their voices faded as Zara drifted toward sleep, the events of the day blurring into exhaustion. Her last conscious thought was of Quinn Sterling's eyes, and how they had looked when he'd promised her safety, as if that promise came from somewhere deep and unbreakable within him. Morning arrived with the crowing of a rooster and the scent of coffee brewing. Zara woke disoriented, her body stiff and sore. The events of the previous day rushed back, along with a wave of uncertainty about her future. She dressed quickly in one of her simpler dresses, a pale yellow cotton with minimal embellishment, and pinned her dark hair into a simple knot. When she emerged from her room, only Clementine was in the kitchen, kneading dough at the table. "Good morning," she greeted warmly. "Quinn and Jose left at dawn to check the north pasture. There's coffee on the stove and eggs keeping warm in the oven." "Thank you." Zara hesitated. "May I help with anything? You could set the table if you don't mind. We'll have a proper breakfast when the men return." Clementine nodded toward a cabinet. "Plates are in there." As they worked together, Zara felt a growing ease with the other woman. Clementine chatted about the ranch, explaining that Quinn had built it from nothing 5 years ago after returning from the war. "He served with the Union cavalry," she explained, punching down the dough. "Came back different like so many did. Needed open spaces and quiet after that. And you joined him here, Clementine nodded. After my Robert died at Gettysburg, there wasn't much left for me in Pennsylvania. Quinn suggested I come west, start fresh. She smiled faintly. Best decision I ever made, though don't tell him I said so. His head's big enough already. Zara found herself smiling for the first time since arriving in Wyoming. You two are close. He's all the family I have left, Clementine said simply. She covered the dough with a cloth. Now, while that rises, let's see to that face of yours. In the small mirror Clementine provided, Zara winced at her reflection. A dark bruise bloomed across her cheekbone and her lip was swollen where it had split. It looks worse than it feels, she lied, not wanting to seem weak. Clementine's knowing look said she wasn't fooled. I've made a salve with arnica. It'll help with the bruising. As Clementine gently applied the cooling ointment, the sound of horses approaching drew their attention. Through the window, Zara saw Quinn dismounting in the yard, his tall figure unmistakable even at a distance. Beside him, a shorter man with a weathered, smiling face led his horse toward the barn. That's Jose, Clementine explained. He and Maria have been with Quinn since he started the ranch, their family in all but blood. The men entered a few minutes later, bringing with them the scents of horses, fresh air, and honest work. Quinn removed his hat upon seeing Zara, revealing thick dark hair that curled slightly at the edges. Miss Avery, he greeted her formally. I hope you slept well. Very well, thank you, Mr. Sterling, Quinn, he corrected gently. Jose stepped forward with a warm smile, extending his hand. Jose Martinez, Senorita, welcome to Silver Creek Ranch. Quinn's eyes lingered on the bruise on her cheek, his expression darkening momentarily before he masked it. Jose and I spotted a coyote near the chicken coop tracks. I'll need to reinforce the fencing this afternoon. Breakfast was a surprisingly comfortable affair. Jose told amusing stories about the stubborn cattle they managed, while Clementine teased her brother about his inability to bake an edible biscuit. Quinn spoke little, but Zara noticed how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, a rare but transformative expression that softened his weathered features. After the meal, Jose departed to help his wife with their own chores, and Clementine excused herself to tend the garden. Zara found herself alone with Quinn for the first time since he'd rescued her. I wanted to thank you properly, she began, gathering her courage. What you did yesterday, anyone would have done the same, he interrupted, clearly uncomfortable with her gratitude. No, Zara insisted quietly. They wouldn't and didn't. There was a crowd of people who watched and did nothing. Quinn's eyes met hers briefly before looking away. Townsend has a lot of influence in these parts. People are afraid to cross him. But you weren't. He shrugged, a slight movement of his broad shoulders. I've faced worse than Marshal Townsend. Zara studied him, noting the faint scar that ran along his jawline and the way he sometimes flexed his left hand as if it pained him. The war had left its marks on him, visible and invisible. Still, she persisted, I owe you my safety, perhaps my life. I won't forget that. Quinn stood, clearly uneasy with her words. You don't owe me anything, Miss Avery. I'd appreciate it if you'd remember that. His tone wasn't unkind, but it left no room for argument. I should get to those repairs. After he left, Zara helped Clementine with the household chores, grateful for the distraction. Through the window, she occasionally glimpsed Quinn working on the chicken coop, his movements efficient and purposeful. He doesn't accept gratitude well, Clementine remarked, catching Zara watching him. Never has. I noticed, Zara replied. He seems uncomfortable with it. Clementine nodded, her eyes on her brother. Quinn believes people should help each other simply because it's right, not for thanks or recognition. She paused, considering her next words carefully. The war changed him, Before, he was quick to laugh, quick to make friends. Now he keeps to himself, speaks only when necessary. "Except with you," Zara observed. A smile touched Clementine's lips. "Even with me sometimes, but that's family for you." She handed Zara a basket of freshly harvested vegetables. "Would you mind taking these to Maria? I think you'll like her, and it'll give you a chance to see more of the ranch." The Martinez cabin was small but welcoming, with bright curtains in the windows and a garden of colorful flowers surrounding it. Maria, a petite woman with a quick smile and intelligent eyes, greeted Zara warmly. "Clementine told me what happened," she said, inviting Zara inside. "That Marshal Townsend, he is a bad man. You are lucky Quinn found you." "I'm beginning to understand that," Zara admitted, accepting the cup of strong, sweet coffee Maria offered. As they talked, Maria shared how she and Jose had come to work for Quinn. "We had nothing after the drought took our small farm near Santa Fe. Quinn gave Jose work when others would not hire a Mexican." Her eyes softened with loyalty. "He is a good man, though he tries to hide it behind that serious face." When Zara returned to the main house, she found Quinn on the porch, mending a bridle with practiced hands. He nodded acknowledgement but didn't speak. "Maria sent fresh tortillas for dinner," Zara offered, showing him the cloth-covered basket. "She makes the best in the territory," he replied, his voice warming slightly. Zara hesitated, then sat on the step below him. "I've been thinking about my situation," she began carefully. "I need to find work, earn enough to either establish myself here or return east." Quinn's hands stilled on the leather. "You have time to decide. There's no rush." "That's very generous, but I can't impose indefinitely." He studied her for a moment. "Clementine mentioned you were a seamstress in Boston." Zara nodded. "Yes, for Madame Beauchamp's dress shop." "I'm quite skilled with a needle. Promise Creek could use a good seamstress. Mrs. Wilson does some work, but her eyesight's failing. Most folks have to send to Cheyenne for proper tailoring." Hope fluttered in Zara's chest. "Do you think there would be enough work?" "Between the town and outlying ranches, I'd say so." He returned to his mending. "But you'll need time to heal before making any decisions." "I'm not as fragile as I appear, Mr. Sterling Quinn," she corrected herself. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I never thought you were fragile, Miss Avery. No fragile woman would have made it this far west on her own." His words, simple as they were, warmed something inside her. For the first time since arriving in Wyoming, Zara felt a spark of possibility, of a future she might carve for herself in this wild, beautiful land. The days fell into a rhythm at Silver Creek Ranch. Zara's bruises faded slowly, turning from angry purple to yellowish green before disappearing entirely. She insisted on earning her keep, helping Clementine with household tasks, and even learning to gather eggs from the ornery hens that Quinn swore had personal vendettas against humanity. A week after her arrival, Clementine announced they would be going into town for supplies. Zara's stomach tightened with anxiety. "I'm not sure that's wise," she said. Marshal Townsend doesn't own Promise Creek," Clementine stated firmly, "and you can't hide forever. Besides, Quinn is coming with us." Quinn had been avoiding her somewhat in recent days, finding reasons to work in distant pastures or spend extra time in the barn. But he rode alongside the wagon as they made their way to town, his rifle across his saddle and his eyes constantly scanning the horizon. Promise Creek looked different in the clear light of morning than it had on that terrible evening. The main street bustled with activity, ranchers purchasing supplies, women gossiping outside the general store, children chasing each other in the dusty road. As their wagon pulled up in front of Simmons' general store, Zara felt exposed, vulnerable. Quinn dismounted and approached her side of the wagon. "Stay close to Clementine," he said quietly. "I need to speak with Sheriff Davis while we're here." Inside the store, Zara felt curious eyes upon her as she helped Clementine select flour, coffee, and other necessities. Mrs. Simmons, a plump woman with shrewd eyes, studied her openly. "You must be the Eastern girl Townsend brought out," she said without preamble. "Heard what happened. Shameful business." Zara stiffened, unsure how to respond. Clementine intervened smoothly. "Mrs. Simmons, we're also looking for some good quality fabric. Miss Avery is an accomplished seamstress." The shopkeeper's expression shifted from curiosity to interest. "Is that so? My Jenny's getting married this fall, and I've been at my wits' end about her dress." Mrs. Wilson's fingers are too gnarled for fine work these days. By the time Quinn returned, Zara had secured her first commission, a wedding dress for Jenny Simmons, with the promise of more work if the result pleased Mrs. Simmons. "Word will spread," Clementine assured her as they loaded their purchases. "You'll have more orders than you can handle in no time." Quinn's expression was unreadable as he helped them into the wagon. "Sheriff Davis says Townsend's been asking about you," he told Zara quietly. "Nothing direct, but he's been inquiring where you might have gone." Fear snaked through her. "What does he want with me? He made it clear I wasn't worth his time." "Men like Townsend don't like losing what they consider theirs," Quinn replied grimly. "And they especially don't like being shown up in public." The return journey was tense, with Quinn riding closer to the wagon than before. Zara couldn't help glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see Marshall's men in pursuit. That evening, after dinner, Quinn surprised her by asking if she'd join him on the porch. The night was cool but pleasant, with a blanket of stars stretching across the vast Wyoming sky. They sat in companionable silence for several minutes before he spoke. "I think you should learn to shoot," he said finally. Zara turned to him, startled. "I beg your pardon. A woman alone in these territories should know how to defend herself." His profile was strong in the moonlight, especially a woman with enemies. "You think Marshall Townsend would truly harm me?" Quinn's jaw tightened. "I think it's better to be prepared and not need the skill than to need it and not have it." Zara considered his words. In Boston, the notion of a woman handling firearms would have been shocking. But Boston felt like another lifetime now. "Very well," she agreed. "When do we start?" A hint of surprise crossed his features, as if he'd expected resistance. "Tomorrow, if you're willing." The following morning dawned clear and cool. After breakfast, Quinn led Zara to a clearing behind the barn, carrying a wooden box under his arm. He opened it to reveal a revolver, smaller than the one he wore on his hip. "This was Clementine's when she first came west," he explained, lifting it carefully. "It's a Remington new model. 5 shots, relatively light recoil." With patient hands, he showed her how to load it, explaining each step in his deep, measured voice. When it came time to fire, he positioned himself behind her, adjusting her stance and grip. "Keep both eyes open," he instructed, his breath warm against her ear. "Sight down the barrel at your target, that can on the fence post." Zara was acutely aware of his proximity, the solid warmth of his chest just inches from her back. Her heart hammered, and not entirely from nervousness about firing the gun. "Breathe in," he continued, his voice low. "Then exhale slowly and squeeze the trigger gently. Don't pull or jerk it." She followed his instructions, gasping slightly as the revolver bucked in her hands. The can remained untouched. "That's all right," Quinn assured her. "No one hits their target the first time. Try again." They practiced for an hour, and by the end, Zara had managed to hit the can twice. Her wrists ached and her ears rang, but a sense of accomplishment flooded through her. "You're a quick learner," Quinn commented, taking the revolver to clean it. "We'll practice every day until you're comfortable with it." "Thank you," Zara said sincerely, "not just for the lesson but for everything." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding that went beyond words. For a moment, Quinn's usual reserve seemed to falter, and Zara glimpsed something vulnerable in his gaze. Then he looked away, the moment broken. "It's nothing," he said, returning the gun to its box. "Just being neighborly." But as he walked away, Zara sensed it was more than that for both of them. The weeks that followed brought changes to Zara's life that she could never have anticipated. Jenny Simmons' wedding dress was completed to great acclaim, and as Clementine had predicted, orders began to flow in. Zara converted one corner of her small room into a sewing area, with Quinn crafting her a table at the perfect height for cutting patterns. Each morning she practiced shooting with Quinn, her aim improving steadily. Each evening they often sat on the porch together, sometimes talking, sometimes sharing comfortable silence under the stars. Slowly, piece by piece, Zara began to learn more about the quiet man who had saved her. He spoke sparingly of the war, but mentioned enough for her to understand he'd seen terrible things as a cavalry scout. He told her about building the ranch, about the harsh first winter when he'd nearly lost everything to blizzards and wolves. And occasionally, when the night was especially dark and the house quiet, he would share memories of his parents, who had died in a river crossing when he and Clementine were teenagers. In turn, Zara told him about Boston, about her dreams of someday having her own dress shop, about the parents she still mourned. With each conversation, the space between them seemed to shrink, filled instead with growing understanding. One evening in late August, as summer's heat began to soften toward autumn, Quinn found Zara on the porch, her sewing forgotten in her lap as she watched the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of gold and purple. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, settling beside her. Zara smiled. "I was just thinking how different everything is from what I expected when I came west." "Better or worse?" She considered the question seriously. "Different, harder in some ways, but also—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "More honest, perhaps." In Boston, everything was about appearances, about saying the right things even when they weren't true. Here, there's little room for pretense. Quinn nodded, understanding. The territory has a way of stripping things down to what matters. "Yes, exactly." She turned to face him. "I received a letter today from Widow Parker. She's offered me the small room above her shop to use as my seamstress business, with living quarters included." Something flickered across Quinn's face, disappointment, concern. It was gone too quickly for Zara to identify. "That's a good opportunity," he said carefully. "Parker's building is well situated." "It is," Zara agreed. "She's asking a fair rent, and I believe I can make it work with the commissions I already have." Quinn studied the horizon. "When would you move?" I told her I'd need 2 weeks to decide. Zara's fingers worried the fabric in her lap. "I wanted to discuss it with you and Clementine first." He looked surprised. "You don't need our permission, Zara." "Not permission, no, but your opinions matter to me." She took a deep breath. "These past weeks you've all become important to me. I wouldn't want to seem ungrateful by leaving so soon." Quinn's expression softened. "You've more than earned your keep, and you know Clementine loves having you here." He paused. "As do I." The simple admission sent warmth flooding through Zara's chest. "Thank you for saying that." "It's just the truth." He shifted slightly, as if uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "But Promise Creek would offer you more opportunities, and it's time you built something for yourself, not just helped us with our place." "You're probably right," Zara said, though part of her had hoped he might ask her to stay. They fell silent, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. When Quinn finally spoke again, his voice had an edge she hadn't heard before. "Townsend's been asking more questions about you in town. Sheriff Davis says he seems fixated on the idea that you owe him for your passage west." Zara's stomach tightened. "I offered to repay him before that day in town. He refused. Men like him don't want money. They want control." Quinn's hand clenched into a fist on his knee. "I'm not sure it's safe for you to move into town alone." "I can't hide forever," Zara echoed Clementine's earlier words. "And I have my Remington now, thanks to you." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're a fair shot, but Townsend doesn't fight fair." Before Zara could respond, hoofbeats approached rapidly from the direction of the road. Quinn was on his feet in an instant, hand moving to his sidearm as he positioned himself protectively in front of her. Jose emerged from his cabin, shotgun in hand, as a rider came into view. It was a young boy from town, his horse lathered from hard riding. "Mr. Sterling," he called, reining in sharply. "Miss Clementine sent me. There's trouble in town." Quinn strode to meet him. "What kind of trouble?" "Where's my sister?" "At Doc Wilson's house," the boy panted. "It's Maria. Townsend's men caught her in town, beat her pretty bad. Miss Clementine's helping the doctor tend to her." Jose let out a cry of anguish, already running for the barn to saddle his horse. "Why would they hurt Maria?" Zara asked, horrified. The boy looked at her directly. "They were asking where to find you, madam. Said they had a message from Townsend. When she wouldn't tell them, He swallowed hard. "It's bad, sir." Quinn's expression hardened into something dangerous. "Zara, help Jose get ready." "I'll saddle the horses." He turned to the boy. "You did well, Tommy. Rest your horse and yourself here tonight." Within minutes, they were thundering toward Promise Creek, Jose leading the way with desperate urgency. Quinn rode beside the wagon where Zara held the reins, his rifle across his saddle. "This is my fault," Zara said, her voice tight with guilt. "They hurt Maria because of me." "This is Townsend's fault," Quinn corrected sharply. "No one else's." The 15-mile journey to town seemed endless when they finally reached Dr. Wilson's small house on the edge of Promise Creek. Jose was already inside. Quinn helped Zara down from the wagon, his hands lingering briefly on her waist. "Stay close to me," he murmured, his eyes scanning the darkened street. Inside, they found Clementine sitting beside a bed where Maria lay, her face barely recognizable beneath the bruising and swelling. Jose knelt on her other side, holding her hand and whispering in Spanish, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "How is she?" Quinn asked Dr. Wilson, who stood mixing something at a small table. "2 broken ribs, broken nose, countless bruises," the doctor replied grimly. "But she'll live. She's stronger than she looks." Clementine rose to embrace her brother. "It was Townsend's foreman and 2 others," she said quietly. "They cornered her behind the mercantile when she was picking up supplies. Sheriff Davis has them in jail, but Townsend will have them out by morning," Quinn finished, his voice hard. Zara approached the bed cautiously. "Maria, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Maria's eyes fluttered open, finding Zara's face. "Not your fault," she managed through swollen lips. "Bad men do bad things." Jose looked up at Quinn, his face ravaged by grief and anger. "They will pay for this." "Yes," Quinn agreed simply. "They will." Dr. Wilson approached with a small cup. "This laudanum will help her sleep through the worst of the pain. Jose, you'll stay with her tonight," the man nodded. "I will not leave her side." Quinn drew Zara and Clementine aside. "You 2 should stay here as well. I need to speak with Sheriff Davis." Zara caught his arm. "What are you planning, Quinn?" His eyes met hers, and the cold fury she saw there sent a shiver down her spine. "Just a conversation." "Don't do anything rash," Clementine pleaded. Townsend's been looking for an excuse. I'll be careful, he promised, though Zara wasn't reassured. After Quinn left, Clementine and Zara settled in the doctor's sitting room. Hours passed with no word. Jose remained by Maria's bedside, while Dr. Wilson occasionally checked on his patient before dozing in his chair. "He has a good heart, my brother," Clementine said softly, breaking the tense silence. "But sometimes I fear it will be his undoing. He cares too deeply about injustice." "That's not a flaw," Zara replied. "It is when it blinds him to danger," Clementine sighed. "Since the war, he's carried this. I don't know what to call it. A darkness. As if he's waiting for the world to hurt him again, to prove that nothing good lasts." Zara thought of the quiet moments she'd shared with Quinn, the rare smiles that transformed his serious face, the gentleness in his hands despite their strength. "He's finding his way back," she said. "I can see it." Clementine studied her with newfound interest. "Perhaps you're right. He's different when you're around, more like his old self." Before Zara could respond, the door opened and Quinn entered. His knuckles were raw and bloody, and a fresh cut marked his cheekbone, but his eyes were clear. "Quinn!" Clementine exclaimed, rushing to examine his injuries. "What happened?" "Nothing that wasn't necessary," he replied, allowing her to clean his hands with a damp cloth. "Townsend's men will be on the morning stage to Cheyenne. Davis made it clear they're not welcome back." "And Townsend himself?" Zara asked. Quinn's jaw tightened. "He wasn't in town, but he'll get the message." He winced as Clementine dabbed at his cut. "How's Maria?" "Sleeping now," she answered. "Doc says she'll need several weeks of rest." Quinn nodded. "Then that's what she'll get. Jose, too." He looked at Zara. "We should head back to the ranch at first light. It's not safe for you here." "What about Widow Parker's offer?" Zara asked. "It'll have to wait," Quinn said firmly. "At least until this situation is resolved." "And how will it be resolved, Quinn?" Clementine demanded. "Townsend isn't the type to let this go." Quinn's expression was grim. "No, he isn't, but neither am I." Zara felt cold fear spread through her chest. The last thing she wanted was for Quinn to face Townsend directly. The rancher had too much power, too many men at his disposal. And now she had seen firsthand what happened to those who crossed him. "I won't have anyone else hurt because of me," she said with sudden determination. "Perhaps I should leave the territory altogether." "No," Quinn's response was immediate and forceful. "Running won't solve this. Townsend would just find someone else to torment." "Quinn's right," Clementine added gently. "Men like that don't stop until they're stopped." As dawn broke over Promise Creek, they prepared to return to Silver Creek Ranch. Jose insisted on bringing Maria home, carefully placing her in the wagon on a makeshift bed of blankets. Quinn helped Zara onto his horse, mounting behind her. "Hold tight," he murmured as they set off, his arms encircling her as he held the reins. The closeness was both comforting and unsettling. Zara could feel the solid strength of his chest against her back, his breath warm against her hair. Despite the circumstances, she felt safe in his embrace, safer than she had felt since leaving Boston. As they rode out of town, Zara noticed Quinn's posture stiffen. Following his gaze, she saw a group of riders watching them from a distant ridge. "Townsend's men?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Quinn replied, his voice tight. "Just watching for now." The message was clear. This wasn't over. The next 2 weeks passed in uneasy calm. Maria slowly recovered under Jose and Clementine's care, while Quinn doubled the patrols around the ranch's perimeter. Zara continued her sewing work, but now Quinn insisted on accompanying her whenever she needed to deliver finished pieces to clients in town. On a crisp September morning, Zara found Quinn in the barn, mending tack with practiced hands. She hesitated in the doorway, watching him work for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about Widow Parker's offer," she said. Quinn's hand stilled briefly before resuming their work. "And I'm going to decline it," Zara decided, "at least for now." He looked up, surprise evident in his green eyes. "Because of Townsend, partly," she admitted, "but also because." She took a deep breath. "I've realized I'm happy here, with you and Clementine, with Jose and Maria. It feels like home," Quinn supplied when she faltered. Zara nodded. "Yes. And I'd like to stay if you'll have me. Not as a guest, but perhaps as a partner of sorts. I could establish my seamstress business here, pay proper rent for my room, contribute to the household." Quinn set aside his work and stood, crossing the barn to stand before her. In the filtered sunlight, his eyes seemed to hold flecks of gold among the green. "You don't need to pay rent," he said quietly. "Your presence here is valuable to us, to me." Zara's heart quickened at his words, at the intensity in his gaze. "Even so, I want to contribute. To build something of my own while being part of what you've created here." A rare, full smile spread across Quinn's face, transforming his features. "Then we'd be honored to have you stay, Zara Avery." For a moment, they stood close enough that Zara could feel the warmth radiating from him. Quinn's hand lifted slightly, as if he might touch her face, then dropped back to his side. "I should finish this work," he said, a hint of reluctance in his voice. "Clementine's planning a special dinner tonight, Maria's first time out of bed since it happened." Zara nodded, equally reluctant to break the moment. "I'll help her prepare." As she turned to leave, Quinn called after her. "Zara," she looked back. "I'm glad you're staying," he said simply. The warmth in his voice carried her through the day as she helped Clementine prepare a celebratory meal. That evening, gathered around the table with Jose supporting Maria in her chair, Zara felt a sense of belonging she had never expected to find in the Wyoming Territory. "A toast," Clementine declared, raising her glass. "To family, not just the one we're born with, but the one we choose." "To family," they echoed, and as Zara's eyes met Quinn's across the table, something unspoken passed between them, a promise, a possibility. The peaceful moment was shattered by the sound of approaching riders. Many riders. Quinn was on his feet instantly, moving to the window. "At least a dozen men," he reported, his voice tight. "Townsend's at the front." Jose reached for his shotgun, but Quinn stopped him. "Stay with the women." "I'll handle this." "Quinn, no," Zara protested, following him to the door. "There are too many of them." He paused, looking down at her with an expression that made her breath catch. "Trust me," he said softly, then stepped onto the porch to face the approaching riders. From the window, Zara watched Marshal Townsend rein in his horse at the edge of the yard. The rancher was a large man with a florid face and cold eyes, flanked by rough-looking cowhands. "Sterling," Townsend called. "I believe you have something of mine." "There's nothing of yours here, Townsend," Quinn replied, his voice carrying clearly in the evening air. His hand rested casually near his holstered revolver. Townsend laughed, an ugly sound. "The woman. She's my property, paid good money to bring her west. I want her back." "People aren't property," Quinn stated, echoing the words he'd spoken that first day in Promise Creek. "Miss Avery is staying here of her own free will." "Then I'll take her by force," Townsend threatened, nodding to his men who spread out in a threatening line. Zara couldn't bear it any longer. Despite Clementine's protests, she stepped onto the porch beside Quinn. "I'm not going anywhere with you, Mr. Townsend," she declared, her voice stronger than she felt. Townsend's eyes narrowed. "There she is." "The ungrateful little—" "Watch your language," Quinn interrupted coldly. "And watch your next move very carefully." "Or what?" Townsend sneered. "You're outnumbered, Sterling. This doesn't end well for you." Quinn didn't flinch. "Before you do something foolish, you should know Sheriff Davis is fully aware of what happened to Maria Martinez." And Judge Parker in Cheyenne has signed warrants for your men who did it." Townsend's confident expression faltered slightly. "Furthermore," Quinn continued, "I've sent affidavits from Dr. Wilson and 5 witnesses to the territorial governor documenting your history of violence against women. One more incident and you'll face more than local justice." "You're bluffing," Townsend growled, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Am I?" Quinn took a deliberate step forward. "Test me and find out. But know this, if you or any of your men so much as look at Miss Avery or anyone on this ranch again, I will personally ensure it's the last thing you do." The tension stretched between them like a bowstring pulled too tight. Zara held her breath, acutely aware of Jose positioning himself at the window with his shotgun, of Clementine standing ready by the door. Finally, Townsend spat in the dirt. "She ain't worth the trouble," he muttered, though his eyes burned with humiliation. "But this territory's getting too small for both of us, Sterling." "Then perhaps you should consider moving on," Quinn suggested, his voice deceptively mild. With a vicious curse, Townsend wheeled his horse around. "This isn't over," he threatened, before leading his men away at a gallop. Only when the riders had disappeared into the gathering dusk did Quinn's rigid posture relax slightly. He turned to Zara, concern etching his features. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her legs felt unsteady beneath her skirts. "Did you really send those affidavits to the governor?" A small smile touched his lips. 3 days ago, Sheriff Davis helped gather the statements." Relief washed over Zara, followed quickly by something else, a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed her. Before she could think better of it, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Quinn's waist, pressing her face against his chest. After a moment of surprise, his arms came around her, strong and secure. "It's over now," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe." "Because of you," she whispered. Quinn's hand gently tilted her face up to his. "No, Zara. You saved yourself the moment you refused to be his victim. I just helped with the details." Their eyes held, and in that moment, Zara saw everything he hadn't said: how much he cared, how afraid he'd been for her, how deeply he wanted her to stay. Not as a guest or a business partner, but as something far more significant. "Quinn," she began, her heart pounding. But Clementine's voice interrupted from the doorway. "Is it safe to continue our dinner? Maria's getting tired." The moment broke, though Quinn's hand lingered briefly against Zara's cheek before he stepped back. "It's safe," he assured his sister. "Townsend won't be back tonight." As they returned inside to finish their interrupted celebration, Zara caught Quinn watching her with an expression that sent warmth flooding through her. Whatever had begun between them in that moment on the porch wasn't finished, it was just beginning. Autumn painted the Wyoming landscape in brilliant golds and reds as September gave way to October. True to Quinn's prediction, Marshal Townsend did not return to Silver Creek Ranch, though rumors circulated that he was considering selling his holdings and moving to Colorado Territory. Zara's seamstress business flourished. With Quinn's help, she converted the ranch's unused bunkhouse into a proper workshop, complete with large windows for natural light and built-in cabinets for her growing collection of fabrics and notions. Word of her skills spread beyond Promise Creek, bringing clients from as far as Cheyenne for fittings. Quinn and Zara fell into a comfortable routine of shared meals, evening conversations on the porch, and Sunday rides across the ranch's rolling pastures. Yet despite the growing closeness between them, Quinn maintained a certain reserve, never again coming as close to crossing the invisible line between friendship and something more as he had the night Townsend came to the ranch. On a crisp Saturday morning in late October, Zara was working in her shop when Clementine appeared in the doorway, dressed for town. "I'm heading to Promise Creek for supplies," she announced. "Would you like to come along? We could visit Widow Parker's new shipment of fabrics." "I'd love to," Zara agreed, setting aside the wedding suit she was tailoring for the banker's son. "Let me change quickly." As they rode toward town in the wagon, Clementine seemed unusually quiet, almost nervous. "Is everything all right?" Zara asked finally. Clementine sighed. "I've been wanting to speak with you about something. About Quinn." Zara's heart quickened. "What about him?" "I've seen how you look at each other," Clementine said directly, "and I've never seen my brother so at peace as he's been these past months with you at the ranch." Heat rose in Zara's cheeks. "Quinn has been very kind to me." "It's more than kindness, Zara, and I think you know that." Clementine's eyes were gentle but knowing. "The question is, what do you intend to do about it?" I don't know what you mean," Zara stammered. Clementine laughed softly. "My brother is the most stubborn man in Wyoming Territory. He's convinced himself that offering you his heart would somehow be taking advantage of your situation, that you stay at the ranch out of gratitude or necessity, not choice." Zara's breath caught. "That's not true. I stay because I want to be there, because I—" She hesitated, then admitted what she'd scarcely acknowledged to herself. "Because I care for him, deeply." "Then perhaps you should tell him so," Clementine suggested. "Quinn has spent so much of his life believing he doesn't deserve happiness that sometimes he needs to be shown otherwise." Zara considered her words carefully. "I wouldn't want to presume." "It's not presumption when it's mutual," Clementine assured her. "Trust me, I know my brother. And I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, when he thinks no one's watching." The conversation lingered in Zara's mind as they completed their errands in Promise Creek. At Widow Parker's shop, she selected several beautiful fabrics with a specific purpose in mind: a new dress for herself, something special for the harvest dance the town was holding the following weekend. When they returned to the ranch, Quinn was working with Jose to repair the barn roof before winter set in. He paused to help unload their purchases, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal sun-bronzed forearms corded with muscle. "Successful trip?" he asked, carrying a heavy sack of flour as if it weighed nothing. "Very," Zara replied, suddenly shy under his gaze. "Widow Parker had some lovely new fabrics from back east." That evening after dinner, Quinn surprised everyone by producing a letter from his pocket. "Came in today's mail," he explained. "From the territorial governor's office." Zara and Clementine exchanged worried glances. "What does it say?" Clementine asked. Quinn's expression was unreadable as he scanned the contents. "Marshal Townsend has been formally charged with multiple counts of assault and intimidation. The governor has personally requested that Judge Parker oversee the case." "That's wonderful news," Zara breathed, relief washing over her. "There's more," Quinn continued. "Townsend sold his ranch yesterday to a cattle company from Chicago. Word is he's leaving the territory before the trial can begin." Jose, who had joined them for coffee, raised his cup. "Good riddance to bad rubbish, as Miss Clementine would say." They all laughed, the tension of the past months finally breaking. As the evening wore on, Jose and Clementine retired to their respective quarters, leaving Quinn and Zara alone by the dying fire. "It feels strange," Zara said softly, "to know he's really gone." Quinn studied her face in the firelight. "Are you relieved?" "Yes," she admitted, "but also—" She searched for the right words. "It's as if a chapter is closing. When I first came west, everything was defined by what happened with Townsend. Now I need to decide what comes next." A shadow crossed Quinn's features. "You're thinking of leaving?" "No," Zara said quickly. "That's not what I meant at all." She gathered her courage, Clementine's words echoing in her mind. "Quinn, I need to tell you something." He set down his coffee cup, giving her his full attention. I'm listening. When you found me that day in Promise Creek, I was at my lowest point. I had nothing, no money, no prospects, no hope. Zara's voice strengthened as she continued. You gave me safety when I needed it most, and I will always be grateful for that. But what I feel for you now has nothing to do with gratitude. Quinn went very still, his eyes never leaving her face. I stay at Silver Creek not because I need to, but because I want to, Zara continued, her heart pounding. Because it's where you are. And over these months, I've come to care for you in a way I never expected to care for anyone. Zara, Quinn began, his voice rough with emotion. Please let me finish, she requested gently. I don't know if you feel the same, but I couldn't let another day pass without telling you that I love you, Quinn Sterling. Not because you saved me, but because of who you are, your integrity, your kindness, your strength. And if you don't share those feelings, I'll understand, but I had to. Her words were cut off as Quinn moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. Zara Avery, he said, his voice low and intense. I have loved you since the moment you stood up from the dust of Promise Creek with fire in your eyes, refusing to be broken. Joy bloomed in Zara's chest, so overwhelming she could scarcely breathe. Truly. In answer, Quinn cradled her face in his calloused hands and kissed her gently at first, then with growing passion as she responded. His lips were warm and surprisingly soft against hers, conveying everything words could not. When they finally parted, both breathless, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I feared you might feel obligated somehow, that your feelings might stem from the circumstances that brought you here. Zara smiled, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. I think we've both been rather foolish. Clementine would certainly say so, Quinn agreed with a low chuckle. His expression grew serious again. Zara, I don't have much to offer beyond this ranch and my heart. But both are yours if you want them. They're all I want, she whispered, drawing him back to her for another kiss. The harvest dance transformed the Promise Creek meeting hall into a celebration of autumn bounty. Pumpkins and dried corn husks decorated every corner, while lanterns cast a warm glow over the assembled townsfolk. A small band played lively tunes as couples whirled across the wooden floor. Zara stood nervously at the edge of the room, her new dress deep blue silk with delicate ivory lace trim rustling softly as she smoothed non-existent wrinkles. She had spent every spare moment of the past week creating it, wanting everything to be perfect for her first public appearance with Quinn as more than friends. You look beautiful, Clementine said, appearing beside her in a lovely burgundy gown. My brother won't know what hit him. Where is Quinn? Zara asked, scanning the crowded room, speaking with Sheriff Davis. Something about Clementine stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as she looked past Zara. Well, I'll be. Zara turned to follow her gaze and felt her heart skip. Quinn stood in the doorway, almost unrecognizable in a perfectly tailored black suit, white shirt, and string tie. His dark hair was neatly combed, his face freshly shaved. But it was his expression, as he spotted her, that took her breath away, a look of such pure adoration that heat rushed to her cheeks. He crossed the room directly to her, oblivious to the curious glances of the townspeople. Miss Avery, he greeted her formally, though his eyes danced with private meaning. You look. There aren't words adequate enough. You clean up rather well yourself, Mr. Sterling, she replied, taking in his transformation from rugged rancher to polished gentleman. Quinn offered his arm. Would you do me the honor of this dance? As he led her onto the floor, Zara was acutely aware of the stares and whispers following them. The town had been buzzing with gossip since word spread that she was staying permanently at Silver Creek Ranch, but this was their first public confirmation of changed circumstances. "Everyone's watching us," she murmured as Quinn's hand settled respectfully at her waist. "Let them," he replied, guiding her confidently through the steps of the waltz. "I'm proud to be seen with the most beautiful, courageous woman in the territory." Zara relaxed into his embrace, surprised by his skill. "You never mentioned you could dance." A smile touched his lips. "There are still a few things you don't know about me, Zara Avery." "I look forward to discovering them all," she replied, her voice soft with promise. They danced for what seemed like hours, pausing only for refreshments and brief conversations with townspeople. Many approached to congratulate them, having already drawn their own conclusions about the relationship. Mrs. Simmons beamed approval, while Sheriff Davis offered a knowing wink that made Quinn chuckle. Near midnight, Quinn led Zara outside to the small garden behind the meeting hall. The October air was crisp, the sky ablaze with stars. "Are you cold?" he asked, already removing his jacket to place around her shoulders. "Not anymore," she replied, drawing his warmth around her like a shield. Quinn took both her hands in his. "I had planned to wait for a more private moment, but—" He reached into his vest pocket and withdrew a small box. "I can't wait another day." Zara's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a delicate gold ring with a small, perfect diamond. "Quinn." He lowered himself to one knee before her, his green eyes reflecting the starlight. "Zara Avery, from the moment I lifted you from the dust of Promise Creek, my life has never been the same. You brought light and joy back into my world when I thought those things were lost to me forever." His voice deepened with emotion. "I love you with everything I am, and I will spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of you. Will you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Tears of joy spilled down Zara's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Quinn Sterling, I will marry you." His hands trembled slightly as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he rose and pulled her into his arms, his kiss conveying all the love and promise of their future together. When they returned inside, Clementine took one look at Zara's radiant face and the ring glinting on her finger and let out a joyful cry, rushing forward to embrace them both. Soon, they were surrounded by well-wishers, the entire town seeming to celebrate their engagement. "You know what this means," Clementine said later as they prepared to leave. "We'll have to host a proper engagement party at the ranch." Quinn groaned good-naturedly. "Can't we just elope?" "Don't you dare," his sister warned. "I've waited years to see you this happy." "I intend to celebrate properly." On the ride home under the star-filled sky, Zara nestled against Quinn's side in the wagon, her head resting on his shoulder. "When shall we marry?" she asked. "As soon as possible," he replied without hesitation. "Unless you want a grand affair that takes months to plan," Zara laughed softly. "No, something simple with those we love around us." She looked up at his profile, still amazed that this good, honorable man was to be her husband. "What about Christmas?" "The ranch would look beautiful with evergreen boughs and candles." Quinn pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Christmas it is." Snow fell gently outside the windows of Silver Creek Ranch as Zara Avery became Zara Sterling on Christmas Eve, 1875. The small cabin was transformed with pine branches, red ribbons, and dozens of candles that cast a golden glow over the proceedings. Sheriff Davis, who was also the town's justice of the peace, performed the ceremony with surprising eloquence. Zara wore a gown of ivory silk that she had worked on in secret for weeks, simple yet elegant, with delicate embroidery along the hem and bodice. Quinn could scarcely take his eyes from her as they exchanged their vows, his voice steady and sure as he promised to love, honor, and protect her all the days of his life. By the authority vested in me by the Wyoming Territory, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Sheriff Davis declared. "Quinn, you may kiss your bride." As Quinn's lips met hers in their first kiss as husband and wife, Zara felt the journey that had begun in dust and pain come full circle to joy and love. The small gathering of friends Clementine, Jose and Maria, Doc Wilson and his wife, Widow Parker, and a few others from town erupted in cheers and applause. Later, as they danced in the cleared space of the main room, Quinn held her close. "Happy?" he asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," Zara replied, her heart so full it seemed it might burst. "When I came west, I was looking for a new beginning. I never imagined I would find my true home." Quinn's eyes, warm with love, held hers. "You know what I thought that day in Promise Creek? When I saw you in the dust, refusing to stay down. What? That you were the strongest person I'd ever seen, and that whoever had hurt you didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you." His hand gently cupped her face. "I didn't know then that helping you would save me too." "We saved each other," Zara whispered, rising on tiptoe to kiss him again. As midnight approached, the guests departed, leaving the newlyweds alone in the cabin that now truly felt like home to them both. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the Wyoming landscape in pristine white, a clean slate, a fresh beginning. "Mrs. Sterling," Quinn said, the name a caress on his lips as he gathered her into his arms. "Welcome home." 5 years later, Silver Creek Ranch had transformed into one of the most prosperous operations in the territory. Quinn's careful management and innovative breeding practices had tripled their herd, while Zara's seamstress business had grown into a thriving enterprise that supplied fine clothing to clients throughout Wyoming and beyond. The small cabin had expanded with new rooms added as their family grew. 3-year-old Robert, named for Clementine's late husband, toddled around the yard under the watchful eye of his father, while 1-year-old Elizabeth napped in her cradle, her dark curls so like her mother's. Clementine had married Doc Wilson's widowed brother 2 years prior and moved to their own small homestead nearby, though she visited almost daily. Jose and Maria had built a larger cabin on the ranch property and added 2 children of their own to the extended family. On a warm summer evening, as the children slept and the household settled into peaceful quiet, Quinn found Zara on the porch swing he had built for her after Robert's birth. She was working on a small piece of embroidery, her nimble fingers creating delicate flowers on a baby's bonnet. "For the Miller twins?" he asked, settling beside her and draping his arm around her shoulders. "Yes, Sarah's worried they'll come early." Zara set aside her work to lean against him. "How was the north pasture?" "Good. The new grass is coming in well." Quinn pressed a kiss to her temple. "I was thinking about something while I was riding today." "Oh," Zara looked up at him curiously. "You remember what I said to you that day in Promise Creek, when I helped you up from the dust?" Zara's expression softened. "You said you're safe now, madam. I promise you that." Quinn nodded, his fingers gently caressing her shoulder. "I meant it then as a simple reassurance, but now I understand it was actually a promise to myself as much as to you that I would spend the rest of my life making sure you were safe, happy, loved." "And you have," Zara assured him, reaching up to touch his face, now more weathered but still handsome. "Beyond anything I could have dreamed." "No regrets?" he asked, a hint of his old insecurity surfacing. "About staying in Wyoming instead of returning east?" Zara laughed softly. "Quinn Sterling, how could I regret finding true love, building a beautiful home, raising our children in this wild, wonderful place?" She gestured toward the land that stretched before them, painted gold by the setting sun. "This is where I belong, with you." Quinn gathered her closer, his heart full as he gazed at the woman who had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined. From that first moment in the dust of Promise Creek to this peaceful evening on their porch, every step of their journey together had led them home. "I love you, Zara Sterling," he murmured against her hair. "And I love you," she replied, her voice carrying the same certainty it had when she'd accepted his proposal 5 years ago. Always. As twilight deepened around Silver Creek Ranch, Zara and Quinn remained on the porch swing, watching the first stars appear in the vast Wyoming sky. Their hands intertwined, their hearts beating as one, the cowboy who had offered safety and the woman who had found not just protection, but a love strong enough to last a lifetime.